What's up, guys, and welcome back to another Adventure 605 abandoned mine exploration video. Guys, we are so psyched. We are going to a super historic abandoned mine up high in the northern Black Hills, and the landowner can't wait to show us around, and we can't wait to see it. And then after that, we're going to go check out some other cool stuff. But we're really excited for this video, and we can't wait to bring you along and show you the mine. So let's go. Once we got to the site, the owner Joe explained a little bit about his property, the history, and where he was located in relation to where our adventure was taking place. And what you see here is Joe kind of explaining that to us.
That's still there. That's about 300 feet beyond that barn. And this is Galena. This is my area right up here. This is how you came in. The schoolhouse is over here. And this is how you came in.
And this is where the adventure begins. Cue the action music. Joe pointed out to us that this tree is a original claim marker, and in the paperwork they even stated that the dead tree is an official claim marker. And the mine finally comes into sight. Joe explained to us a few things about the mine. One thing that stood out is the wooden rail that goes into the mine portal is original and is quite rare. Usually the rail is made out of some sort of metal. In this case, this is wood, and state archaeologists have even confirmed that this is a rarity, and quite possibly the only mine in the entire Black Hills with wooden rail still in place.
Emma mine today in Galena, and it is closed. I'm the owner and I don't allow anybody in there. It's about 350 feet long or so, and when the Merritt brothers were a couple of the first people that made claims here in Galena for Merritt 2 and Merritt 1, and then this came, the best we could tell, this came right around 1880, right after Galena was founded in about 1875. And Seth Bullock, who was the first sheriff of Deadwood, when he retired, he was part owner of this mine. And you can tell this mine did fair. They didn't do enough to have iron rail for their ore carts, so they used the wooden rail system with metal strapping, which you could see the metal strap here. And that prevents the wood from wearing out prematurely. And I made this ore cart here. It's what they would have used back in the day. It's what's called an end dump. You lift one end and dump it out, and a lot of work.
So what you are seeing here is the owner Joe sharing some of the original photographs of the area and of the gulch below the mine. Before going underground, we always like to meet for a quick safety briefing. So what you're witnessing is that safety briefing where we talk about what we need to look out for, low ceilings, and whatnot. This current mine dates back to the later part of the 1800s. So what you're seeing is all original. The wooden track, like we stated before, is original and very rare to the mines out here in the Black Hills. Throughout the years, we have been in countless privately owned abandoned mines in the Black Hills, and every single one of them is unique. As you're underground and you're walking these mines, you have to stop and think about what it was like for the miners back in the 1800s. How much were they getting paid every day? Why were they mining? Did they have families? These are all things I like to think about as we explore these passages, these mines, these tunnels. As we got deeper into the mine, the more wet and mucky it got. And oh boy, were we glad we had muck boots on, because it was muddy, clay, sticky. It was an adventure. This old mine had character. Just look at the sides of the mine. It's beautiful. Well, we promised our friend Ty we would give him a shout out, so here it is. This mine wasn't home to a ton of stopes or shafts at all, but this was one of the few stopes that we came across in this mine. There's a Y. The farther we went into the mine, the more it branched off, which is always kind of fun, because you never really know where the mine's going to lead, and you never really know what you're going to find, whether it's artifacts or history or old carvings or mining carts. So you have to explore every part of the mine and keep track of where you're going so you don't get lost at the same time. It's some excitement, some risk, some unknown being inside these old mines that makes it fun to explore. Speaking of artifacts, Ethan, our historian, picked up on a original carving from the 1800s inside. After we found the carving, we ended up exploring the mine a little bit more, and we started to make our way back out to the portal. But we took our time because, like I said, you never know what you find underground. So you want to take that time and really look around and experience the history. You're in a living museum, so why hurry this? We love exploring these abandoned mines, but there's something about coming back out and seeing the sunlight. As we made our way out, it was time to meet back up with Joe and head off to the next mine. As we approached the next mine, Joe pulled out some old photos to show us of what the place kind of used to look like. And often these places would have had mills and mine buildings and offices, and over the years it disintegrated, the wood buildings fell, they burned down, and this is kind of what's left of that, and it's just merely some skeletal remains now. The owner, Joe, was kind enough to let us look around at some of his other mines on the property. Due to unforeseen circumstances and safety reasons, we were unable to gain entry to most of the other mine portals on the property. It was just not worth taking that chance of a rock falling or a cave-in. These mines are old. They were never safe to start off with. They're not any safer 150 years later. So we peered in from the outside and did our due diligence and photographed them and documented that they exist, and we respected them. We will tell you this, as these mines were deep. One of the mines on the property had over 3 entrances, had 3 large event holes, and they are on record as going more than 750 feet deep and had over 26 drifts in them. So we won't label which mine that was, but These mines hold so much history on this property. Just when we thought Joe had shown us everything on the property, he said, "Oh wait, there's more. I gotta show you some other mines." So we got into the ATV and we got all strapped up and we got to the next mine and we had to take a bit of a hike to get there.
Yama 2, I guess it could be called, and there's nothing else on it. They just said that there's 3 Yamas and this is the second one.
Huh.
I didn't open this up. This is the way it went.
There's something about a mine portal that's just intriguing in itself. But then to add water into the mix makes it even more interesting, and darkness. Well, they say everything that goes up has to come down, and now it's our turn to go down the hill. This is where our adventure with Joe comes to an end. And we wanted to say thank you, Joe, for having us, and we are on to the next mine. A little backstory on this next mine. In September of 1876, there were 2 men by the name of Donegan and Cochran. They filed for this claim, and they had placed wooden stakes at each corner of the claim, 750 feet east and west of their discovery location, at 150 feet downhill and 150 feet uphill from the mine area. Once we got inside the portal, the owner pulled out a series of maps that showed the entire location, and it had the entire map of the drifts and where each tunnel went to and where they stopped at. And there's even some that he didn't know about, which is kind of neat.
In here you'll see it's pretty much a smooth roof. So there won't be any timbering really per se in the mine, because when you start reading about the history of it, there was as Mother Nature laid this ore body in here, it laid this layer of dirt between the ore body was laying here, and then there was a layer of dirt on the roof. Okay? And that dirt layer went anywhere from an inch to a foot, from what they say. But that's how they managed to separate the ore and have this smooth interior roof and not have to timber. Here it is there.
Huh.
See how that came up with rock and then it went to that dirt layer?
Mm-hmm.
And that's, like I said, that's where what separated the Galena ore.
This particular mine ran from 1931 to 2001. And in 1931, shortly after the mine closing, the mill would close as well. And in 1967, the infamous Homestake mine would take it over to do some mining.
They didn't timber it to hold the roof up. They timbered it so that when they came back again, if it was loose or if it was buckled or bowed, they knew something was moving. It was just an indicator for them. It wasn't ever to hold anything up. That timber, if that rock was coming down, that one timber is not going to hold that whole rock roof up. When it's a single post like that, it normally just has one little wedge underneath it, and like I said, they come back and if they can see that wedge was squeezed, then they knew things were moving.
The arrows you see are pointing in the direction of the exit.
Wanted to survey, okay, they would hang a washer down from one of these, and then they would go down the road and they would hang another washer. So then a guy would go out on the very end of the face, the head wall where they were mining to, and they wanted to continue going straight. They would hold a candle out there, and a guy would sight down these 2 washers, depending on, they would measure the drop from one to the other so they could stay on an incline or whatever they wanted and stay in a straight line. So they would hold a candle, and a guy would sight down through these 2 washers hanging from the ceiling, move it around, and then they would mark that's the center of their drill pattern to keep their head wall going.
This mine is documented with having over 2 miles of drifts. Each mining tunnel is about 7 by 7, and it's 44 degrees year-round.
When they were on their head wall or their blasting area, they'd lay burlap down on the ground, so when they blasted it, of course, if they got an ore layer laying on this ceiling, and they got to blast all this rock down to get in there, well, they would blast, and then they would try to get this ore layer to lay down onto burlap so they could hand sort it to put it in their ore carts to take it back outside. Would sort the higher grade got put into sacks. It all got put into 100-pound gunny sacks and put on mule trains and run to Sturgis. Then it was going to get on a train where they took it to Fort Pierre to put it on a barge. All of this ore pretty much from this place went to Omaha, Nebraska. Powder storage room, that's why it's a wood floor, and it was all built up with wood, but this is where they stored their powder.
So we've been told by local historians in the area that the tunneling in this mine goes either south or east to west and has a lot of tunnels that intertwine with each other, and it's kind of a maze underground. The owner had a few things he wanted to show us, including a natural fissure in the mine.
That's a lot of times what they chase, is these fissures, these cracks that Mother Nature deposited and pushed that ore up into.
What you're about to see is some original carbine lamp written assay marks, and this is from when they core drilled back in the day to mark what they took out of the mine. As we ascended out of the drifts and the various mining tunnels, we asked the owner about the original mills or any buildings. Unfortunately, over the years, the mills were either taken down or burned down. Unfortunately, nothing is left of these large mills. There's a few foundations and some cement walls and some old metal outside, but other than that, it's just remnants. We wanted to say thank you to the landowners for having us on the property and giving us a tour. But now it's time to go visit the ghost town that was associated with these mines. As we stopped in the ghost town, we were told that there's very few structures surviving the fires and the harsh winters in the area. Unfortunately, the schoolhouse and the few cabins are all that's really left other than the cemetery. The caretaker was kind enough to show us around and explain some brief history on the schoolhouse. We learned that the schoolhouse was first built in 1882, and by 1883, it was open to educate students in the mining town of Galena. We are unsure of how many school kids went through this schoolhouse, but we can tell you that sometime in 1942, 1943, the school did close. Today, the school is preserved by the Galena Historical Society. They are a 501c3 organization. As we were leaving the schoolhouse, the caretaker said he had one more thing to show us, and it was the underground portion of the school. Okay, the basement. And inside the basement, he showed us the original boiler room and some of the old piping that ran under the school. And that was super neat to see. This is a part of the schoolhouse tour that usually folks don't get to see. So to see the history and hear the stories and maybe some haunted stories underground under this ghost town schoolhouse was kind of neat. Before we went back upstairs, we took one more glimpse around underneath this schoolhouse that sat in this old silver mining town. And you know, it's pretty neat seeing this history. And a special thanks goes out to the caretaker and to all the private landowners who we worked with on this project. The names you see here were possibly students or teachers who went or taught at this school. We're unsure. And as we were leaving the schoolhouse, our buddy Ty had one last request. And his request was, well, to ring the bell.